Clive, good to talk to you today. What do you make of Liz Kendall's statement that having so many people on so many of these benefits is denying them a chance at earning income, a chance at hope?
And there's an element of truth to that. I think most people would accept that the numbers of people who are claiming these benefits is way too high. I think everyone would want to see people in rewarding, well-paid jobs. That's the goal of any reasonable government, and that's what any reasonable society would want. But the reality is we have a jobs market where 1 in 6 workers, according to the Trade Union Congress, are using food banks, are skipping meals. So clearly there's an issue with the jobs market itself. There's also an issue of people who are trying to transition back into work who are literally terrified of the work capability assessment that they will currently have to go through and feel that they might lose benefits and have to go back through that if it doesn't work out at work for them. And on top of that, there's the issue of, what you would call the adaptations at work, to take account of people's disabilities, of their autism or whatever it is, their neurodiversity that may affect or impinge on their ability to integrate into many workplaces. So all of that needs to be sorted out. And I think from that perspective, listening to some of the detail, and obviously we need to hear more, some of what was discussed today by Liz Kendall, the Secretary of State, was very encouraging. Again, I want to go into the details, see what comes out of it. But the problem for me, and I think many other people listening to this, is that rather than start from the process of reform and letting that bed in, letting the jobs market adjust, the Workers' Rights Act, or soon-to-be Act, play into the system, all of those changes to prevention that's taking place in the NHS, rather than letting that peter on through and let the reforms peter on through and make those savings, we're starting from a position of making the reforms, but then finding an arbitrary £5 billion to cut. And I'm afraid to say that that's going to be, it's not going to be a hard sell. It's going to be an impossible sell for people like me. And I don't want to sell that. I don't want my government to do this.
Do you think there will be a rebellion then over Liz Kendall's plans? There's going to be a vote. There's going to be legislation.
I don't know. Some people may find that the changes that are being made are enough. But all of us have to look our constituents in the eye. I know that we live in a country that is extremely wealthy, except it's very unequally distributed. There are choices here. We have a fiscal rule that could be changed. Fiscal rules have changed 22 times before, many of them prematurely. This isn't something cast in iron. We could tax wealth more, 2% on those with £10 million worth or more of assets would raise £26 billion a year. There are choices here. That would give these reforms time to bed in, to make those savings more organically, rather than starting with a cut at the front end. And I'm afraid to say, this is austerity for some of the poorest and most vulnerable people. However we wrap it up, it is. And I don't want to sell that to my constituents. It's not what they voted a Labour government for, in my opinion. I understand this isn't something that the Secretary of State wanted to do. I understand the world and the economy is changing. Things have happened that are beyond our control. But there are still other choices that can be made, and this doesn't feel like the right one to me.
Clive, getting your reaction, just had some reaction come into us now live from the equality charity Scope. They say the biggest cuts to disability on record, to disability benefits on record, should shame the government to its core. They're choosing to penalise some of the poorest people in our society. Almost half of families in poverty include someone who is disabled. We expect the consultation to see an overwhelming response. We urge the government to listen to disabled people and think again. You've said that you have to look your constituents in the eye here, and you're obviously talking about those constituents who are on these benefits and who have disabilities, but you also talked about those who are not working because they don't see the jobs market as being worth their while. You also have to look your constituents in the eye who are taxpayers, don't you? You have to look your constituents in the eye who get up early, go and do a long day at work, possibly not for very much money, but do it, and are still paying taxes to others who possibly living on the same street who are not working.
I'm not going to stand here and play off poorly paid people who go to work to be exploited against those who choose not to go into work and be exploited. There's a better solution, which is to fix the jobs market. There's a better solution, which is to give trade unions more rights to be able to organise in workplaces to secure better terms and conditions and better pay. There are other options, like making sure those with millions and billions pay their fair share of tax. I would look at all of those options before I start punching down. I'd be looking up at what we can do there. There are lots of other things that can be done, but I'm not going to make the blame or have two groups of exploited people trying to play them off against each other. That's the role that the Conservative Party and Reform like to play. It's not a role that I want my party to play. I never heard that today from my government. I heard a government that said what it said in sympathy and sorrow, but that's not enough. There are choices here. I understand what Scope is saying. I think I can empathise with a lot of what they're saying. And unfortunately, I don't believe that this is the right choice for my government. And it gives me a heavy heart to say that. I hope that they will see sense. This is a choice. It's a tough choice that they feel they're making, but it's a choice nonetheless. And there are other options that we could be pursuing. Look, you've got the former Deputy Governor of the Bank of England saying, don't base your £5 or £6 billion of cuts because you've lost your headroom based on an OBR forecast in 5 years' time. At the moment, I imagine there's so many people are wondering, if you vote for this government over here or this government over here, the people that seem to get kicked are those at the bottom. And a Labour government needs to change its tune very quickly to ensure that people don't lose faith in our democracy, faith that things can change for the better. I understand where Liz Kendall, the Secretary of State, is trying to go with this, trying to reform the system. Reform the system, but do it without cuts of this magnitude up front. That would be my plea.
OK. Clive, thank you very much. And as Clive was talking as well as Scope, we've also had a press release from Save the Children, who are also saying that they fear child poverty levels will rise.